Welcome back to Books and Bites. You know how this works. We take a book that you listeners love and we break it down, take all the best parts, and lay it out for you. This time we're diving into The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Ooh, good pick.
It's all about habits,
Yeah.
how they form, the impact they have, and most importantly, how we can change them.
I think this one will resonate with a lot of people.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, who hasn't struggled with a bad habit or two or 10?
Right, we're all creatures of habit, whether we like it or not.
Exactly. So ready to unlock some serious brain power.
Let's do it. This book seriously blew my mind. The way Duhigg lays out the science of habits, it's like a roadmap to understanding how our brains work.
It's true. He doesn't just scratch the surface either. He goes deep into the neurology of it all, how companies use habits to their advantage, but even how habits shape entire societies.
It's incredible. It really makes you see the world in a whole new light.
Absolutely. So the book is split into three parts: habits of individuals, habits of successful organizations, and habits of societies. But before we get into those, let's talk about the core idea, the habit loop.
Okay, so the habit loop, it's this three-part neurological pattern that's running in the background of our lives all the time.
All the time. It's kind of freaky when you think about it.
It is, but once you understand it, you can start to use it to your advantage. So it starts with a cue. This is the trigger that kicks off the whole habit cycle. It could be anything like the smell of coffee in the morning, or that feeling you get when you walk in the door after work.
Or the notification sound on your phone.
Oh yeah, totally. Anything that signals to your brain, hey, it's time for this habit. Then comes the routine, which is the actual behavior, the habit itself. So that could be making your coffee, checking your phone, you name it.
Or pouring a glass of wine and collapsing on the couch.
Hey, I'm not judging. It's all about recognizing those routines.
True, true. And then, of course, you have the reward. This is the good stuff that tells your brain, hey, that felt good. Let's do that again.
Exactly. And that reward could be anything from that caffeine boost to the feeling of relaxation you get from unwinding after a long day to the little dopamine hit you get from seeing those likes on your latest post.
Oh, that dopamine rush is real. But here's the thing. This whole boop, it can become so automatic that we're not even aware of it anymore.
Yeah, it's like we're on autopilot. Duhigg uses this fascinating study with rats to illustrate this point. They put these rats in a maze, and over time, the rats learn to find a chocolate reward. But get this, even when they removed the chocolate, the rats who had a strong habit kept running the maze like clockwork.
They were just so used to the routine, they did it even without the reward. That is wild.
It is. It really highlights how powerful those ingrained patterns can be.
It makes you wonder, like, how much of our own behavior is driven by those same unconscious patterns. Kind of scary, right?
A little bit, yeah. But it's also empowering because it means we can change those patterns if we know how.
And that brings us to Duhigg's golden rule of habit change.
Oh, yeah. The golden rule hit us with it. Okay, so Duhigg says you can't just eliminate a bad habit. You have to replace the routine. It's like trying to stop a train. You need to redirect it onto a different track.
Okay, I like that analogy. Makes sense. So let's say I bite my nails when I get nervous. I can't just stop feeling nervous, but I could replace the nail biting with something else, like squeezing a stress ball or taking some deep breaths.
Exactly. Same cue, different routine, hopefully a better reward.
Right, like less anxiety and healthier nails in my case. So it's not about willpower. It's about finding a healthier alternative to plug into that existing loop.
Exactly. And Duhigg uses the example of Tony Dungy, a football coach, who transformed his team by changing their habitual reactions to plays. Instead of panicking under pressure, they learned to execute new routines, which led them to incredible success.
Wow, so he used the same plays but changed how they reacted. That's pretty brilliant.
It is. It's about recognizing those automatic responses and consciously choosing a different path. And that brings us to another key concept, keystone habits. These are the habits that when you change them, they have this ripple effect across other areas of your life.
Like a domino effect.
Exactly. One change sets off a chain reaction. A classic example is exercise. When people start exercising regularly, they often start eating better, sleeping better, and just feeling more energized overall. It's not just about physical fitness, it impacts other areas of their lives too.
It's like exercise is the key that unlocks a whole bunch of other good habits. I've noticed that myself. When I started making my bed every morning, suddenly my whole room felt more organized, and that motivation kind of spilled over into other things.
Right. It's amazing how these small changes can have such a big impact. And it's not just limited to individuals. Duhigg talks about how companies can use keystone habits to drive success. He shares the story of Alcoa, a huge aluminum company. When Paul O'Neill became CEO, the company was struggling, but instead of focusing on profits or market share, he made worker safety his top priority.
Worker safety? That's an interesting choice.
It was, and it seemed kind of odd at first, but it turned out to be a brilliant move. Focusing on safety forced the company to examine all their processes, communication systems, even their leadership styles. By making safety the keystone habit, O'Neill created a ripple effect that transformed the entire company. They became more efficient, more profitable, and of course, much safer.
So it wasn't just about safety, it was about creating a culture of excellence. That's pretty powerful stuff.
It is. It shows how much impact one well-chosen habit can have. But let's be real here. Changing habits isn't always easy. Willpower plays a big role, and Duhigg dives into that too. One of the most fascinating points he makes is that willpower isn't just this vague idea. It actually works like a muscle.
Like a muscle, so we can work it out.
Exactly. You can strengthen it with practice, but it also gets tired just like any other muscle. It's tied to this area of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for things like decision-making and impulse control.
Ah, so when we're tired, our willpower is weaker. That explains a lot.
Right. It's why we're more likely to make bad decisions when we're exhausted. Ever notice how those healthy eating habits go out the window late at night?
Oh yeah, definitely been there. So if we can train our willpower muscle, we'll be better equipped to resist those temptations.
Exactly. And you know what? Duhigg gives this amazing example of how Starbucks does this with their employees. Their training program, the late tea method, is actually designed to help baristas build willpower habits.
The late tea method, what's that all about?
So it stands for listen, acknowledge, take action, thank them, and explain. It's basically a framework for handling difficult customer interactions with grace and composure. The idea is that if they can stay calm and collected in those high-pressure situations, they'll be better equipped to make good decisions in other areas of their lives too.
Oh, so it's like they're building mental fitness into their training program. That's pretty smart.
It is, and it likely leads to happier employees and better customer service. Now let's talk about how companies use our habits to their advantage. This is where things get a little bit sneaky.
Ooh, sneaky. I like it. Tell me more.
Okay, so Duhigg gives this mind-blowing example of Target. They were using data analytics to predict which customers were pregnant based on their shopping patterns. It sounds crazy, but they noticed that certain products like unscented lotion and prenatal vitamins were strong indicators of pregnancy even very early on.
Wait, hold on. They can do that? Just by looking at what people buy?
Yep, they were sending targeted ads to these women before they even announced their pregnancies.
That's incredible. And a little bit creepy. I mean, where do we draw the line between smart marketing and, invasion of privacy?
Right. It definitely raises some ethical questions, but it also highlights the power of data and how companies are using it to understand and predict our behavior. And it's not just about tracking existing habits, they're also creating new ones. Remember Febreze?
Febreze, yeah, the fabric spray that eliminates odors.
Exactly. But initially it was a total flop. People with pets who were used to those smells didn't even notice them anymore. They were habituated.
Ah, so they didn't see the need for Febreze.
Right? So Febreze did something brilliant. They added a pleasant scent to the spray, a reward at the end of the cleaning routine. Suddenly, people were spraying everything, not just to eliminate odors, but because they liked the fresh scent.
So they created a new habit loop, attaching a reward to the act of cleaning clever. But it makes you think how much of our behavior is being shaped by these marketing tactics without us even realizing it.
It's a good question, and it leads us into the realm of social habits, which is the focus of the third part of the book. Duhigg argues that social movements like the civil rights movement succeed when they tap into existing social habits and networks. It's not just about having a powerful message, it's about understanding how that message spreads and takes root within a community.
So it's like they're hacking the system of social habits to create a movement. The Montgomery bus boycott is a perfect example. It wasn't just about Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. It was about leveraging those existing social networks within the Black community churches, social groups, even hair salons, to spread the word and organize the boycott.
Exactly, and Duhigg emphasizes the importance of both strong ties, those close friendships, and weak ties, those acquaintances you might not know as well, in spreading these social habits and driving change.
It's amazing how these small, everyday interactions can contribute to large-scale social movements. But speaking of changing the world, Duhigg throws us a real curveball in the final section of the book. He starts to question, do we even have free will if our actions are so heavily influenced by these unconscious habits?
That's the big question, isn't it? And to explore this, he brings in this fascinating case study of Eugene Pauly, a man who had brain damage that affected his memory.
Okay, so what happened to him?
Well, the amazing thing is that despite his severe memory loss, Pauly could still perform habits. He could walk the same route every day, even though he couldn't tell you where he was going or why.
Wait, so his memory was gone, but his habits remained intact?
Exactly. It suggests that habits are stored in a different part of the brain than our conscious memories. They operate on a deeper level, almost like a separate program running in the background.
That is mind-blowing. It really makes you question the whole notion of free will. If our actions are so heavily driven by these unconscious habits, are we truly in control?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's a question that we'll continue to grapple with as we delve deeper into the power of habit in our next segment. But for now, I think it's worth taking a moment to just appreciate how much ground we've covered already, from the basic mechanics of the habit loop to the way companies are using them to influence our behavior to the role they play in social movements. It's a lot to process.
It is, and we've only just scratched the surface of the ethical and philosophical questions that this book raises.
Duhigg also talks about the world of gambling and how casinos use their understanding of habit loops to keep people hooked.
Ooh, yeah, gambling. That's a whole other level.
It is. Casinos are masters at creating environments that trigger those reward pathways in the brain. All those flashing lights, the sounds of winning, even those near misses, it's all designed to create a sense of anticipation and excitement that keeps people coming back for more, even when they're losing.
Wow, it's kind of scary when you think about it. But let's shift gears a bit. Duhigg also talks about how habits can be harnessed for social good, right? Especially in the context of social movements.
Oh, definitely. The Montgomery bus boycott is a perfect example of that. It wasn't just about Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. It was about tapping into those existing social networks and routines within the Black community to create a collective movement that couldn't be ignored.
They used their everyday connections, those strong ties they had with each other, to amplify their message and create real change. It's a powerful reminder that we're not just individuals acting in isolation. Our habits are shaped by, and in turn shape the social networks we're a part of.
That's such an important point. And it brings us to another level of habits, organizational habits. These are the unwritten rules, routines, and beliefs that shape how organizations function.
Oh yeah, like company culture.
Exactly. And just like individuals, organizations can develop both good and bad habits, the key to success lies in understanding and shaping those habits to create a more productive, positive, and ultimately successful work environment.
Makes sense.
But it also brings us back to that fundamental question we were wrestling with earlier, the question of free will. If our actions are so heavily influenced by unconscious habits, do we really have control over our choices?
Yeah, that question's been bugging me too. It's like, are we just puppets on a string?
It's a tough one, and Duhigg explores it further through the story of Angie Bachman, who sued a casino claiming her gambling addiction was so strong she wasn't truly in control of her actions.
Wow, so she was arguing that her habits, her addiction, made her not responsible for her choices.
That's essentially what she was saying, and it raises all sorts of complex legal and ethical questions. Where does personal responsibility begin and end? How much control do we really have over our behavior when those ingrained patterns are so powerful?
Heavy stuff. I don't know if there are any easy answers.
There probably are. But that's what makes The Power of Habit such a compelling read. It challenges us to think critically about the forces that shape our lives, both conscious and unconscious. And it gives us the tools to start taking more control, or at least to become more aware of those forces at play.
It's like we're learning the code that runs our own brains, and that's pretty empowering. It's like learning the code that runs our own brains.
I love that analogy, and that's what makes The Power of Habit so empowering. It doesn't just tell us that habits matter. It gives us the knowledge and tools to become architects of our own habits.
It's like taking control of the steering wheel, right? Instead of letting those old habits drive us wherever they want, we can choose a different destination.
And it's not just about individual change either. Duhigg also challenges us to think about how we can leverage the power of habit to create positive change on a larger scale in our communities, organizations, and even society as a whole.
He gives some great examples of this, like how churches use rituals and routines to foster a sense of community and strengthen belief systems, or how support groups like Alcoholics Anonymous leverage the power of habit and social support to help people overcome addiction.
It's about creating structures and environments that support positive habits, both individually and collectively. It's about understanding those invisible forces that shape our behavior and using that knowledge to create the kind of world we want to live in.
That's a powerful idea. So if you're ready to dive into the fascinating world of habits and unlock your own potential for change, we highly recommend checking out The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. You'll find a link to the book in our show notes.
And don't forget to subscribe to Books and Bites for more insightful deep dives into the books that are shaping our world.
Until next time, happy reading.